All right, so I just want to do a quick tutorial on managing classes in Godot plugins. So I've seen a few plugins I've been interested in, but they have a ton of global classes and they like clutter up the global space. Normally this is fine, but when it's something you're making for someone else, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have all these classes that you can access from anywhere. So I'm just going to show you a way to limit this or completely eliminate it if you want. You can also use this for your projects, create kind of like a namespace almost. Not quite, but similar. I'm just going to show you a few examples real quick. This is a plugin I'm working on, this modular browser plugin. It does like a bunch of different things. You got, all sorts of different classes working here. Can even just look in here. So these are all, GD scripts for this plugin. You can imagine if all these had a class name, it'd be pretty miserable. So I've used this technique for that plugin so that there's 0 globally accessible classes. You have to load in this top script and then you can access everything. So we're gonna do the same thing here. So I've got this little AI chat window, this little plugin that I've got, and I've made the classes so that they're all globally accessible. So if we see here, we got all these classes that we really only need to be able to access one. The rest of these, you're never gonna have to access them outside of the plugin or outside of, like the main class. And so, it makes no sense to have them available here cluttering, right? So what we're gonna do is go to the main class. This is kind of like the class where the user would instantiate, and everything else is kind of in support of this. So you see we got LLM tools, LLM HTTP, all these things. So what we're going to do is take all those and put them into this class here. So first off, let's just get rid of the names. So you see as I remove the global names here, we're going to have some issues. So obviously you'd want to do this before before you build the plugin. Let's see here. What do we have some issues? So could not find base class LLM params. So all we gotta do is say const. We're gonna preload it. And this one also needs LLM tools. And this one also needs LLM HTTP. Now, what's happening is we can't resolve the class because this one also has issues. Okay, so that's good. If we go back to, where were we? Was it message? There we go. Now we have these defined in here. We can now access them just like any global class. You can instantiate them if they were, something like that or whatever. Okay, so now we have only our LLM message. Let's go back here. You can see we now have an issue because LLM HTTP is not global anymore. So where we did need it, we're gonna have to access it a little differently. So we'll do LLM message dot LLM HTTP. Now we're accessing that class through the other one. There we go. So let's just reload our scene here. And there we go. Everything's working as normal, except we now only have our one class exposed, right? So it just cleans it up a lot. You can imagine, like in that other program, that other plugin, 100 of these things, you're trying to figure out what's what, right? What's part of the engine, what's not, especially if you're new. So let's take this a step further. Instead of loading these all here, because let's say you have another class that you want to use some of these, now you have to copy and paste these preloads in over there. Or let's say you move, and let's say you move a file after that. Now you got to go into every single place that you've preloaded and fix it. Now, you can just use UID, right? And you're fine. You can move it, but let's just say something ever happened anyways. It's a pain, right? So if we come in here and let's make another script and we'll call it AI chat classes. It can just be ref count. It doesn't really matter. We're never going to instantiate it. So let's open that and let's go back. Let's just copy these in. Let's just add that other one. So now if we come back here, we'll preload the classes. Now from here, we can access it through like that, get our values, get our classes, whatever we want, or you could declare them here and say, LLM param keys is AI chat LLM param keys. Now you can just access it like a class. And so the nice thing about this is if you change anything, any path, any whatever, the only place that you have to change something is in here. All your preloads, all your paths are there. So that's one method. So now let's take this a step further. Let's say you had a general script, a plugin library script, and it's going to have all your plugins listed in here. So let's give this a class name. Plugin library, sure. Let's load our AI chat classes in here. Now you could have, multiple scripts loaded in here and everything is now accessible globally. So if we come back here, we don't even have to load chat classes in here. We could just say plugin library, AI chat classes, param keys, right? Now under this main class here, you could have 10 different plugins. You could have whatever you want. And the only thing globally accessible is plugin library. So that's one way you could access the classes. You could also you could do that. If you wanted to, have this accessible anywhere in the script. The nice thing too is you could name these whatever you wanted, right? So hopefully that kind of shows you how you can make some of this work and make your plugins more, just make it so they're not bloated, right? Bloating the global space with all these classes that no one ever needs to use, right? In this case, we could get rid of this class name too and put it under one of these, and then none of them are exposed, and you only declare it if you need it, right? Now, I think one thing to consider is, so if your plugin is just an editor plugin, that's not going to be exported, you're going to want to think about that, right? If you have this plugin library that has both strictly editor classes, classes that reference the editor interface, you're probably going to want to put those in a separate class than your game objects, right? Because you're not going to be exporting them. And so if this thing's looking for a preload that is not going to be exported, it might cause you some issues, right? So that's something to think about. But yeah, I found this really helpful for building my plugins to make them so that they're not a nuisance. And I'll just give you an example here. This is one of my, this is a reference class or whatever, where this gives me everything I need for my plugin. And I can just load this in, and I basically am in that space, right? I can load in everything I need from here.